My name is Emma. I am 24 years old, and I live in a small city called Brentwood. It isn't a place most people would dream of, but it is home. I share a modest little house with my father and my younger brother, Daniel. My mother passed away when I was still a child, and though the years have softened the pain, the absence of her presence lingers in quiet corners of our lives, like a shadow that never truly leaves. Life has never been luxurious for us, but it has been real. My father works hard, and I do what I can to help. I work at a small coffee stall near the bus station. It's not glamorous. My hands smell of roasted beans and milk foam most days, and my clothes carry the scent of coffee long after my shift ends, but I like it. The stall has become a window to the world. Every day I meet strangers, workers rushing to catch their buses, students with tired eyes and heavy bags, mothers soothing crying children, and old men who sit with their cups longer than necessary just to feel less alone. The money isn't much, but the smiles are. I find joy in greeting familiar faces, in the rhythm of pouring, stirring, serving, and sometimes listening to stories that people share while waiting for their drinks. And when I return home in the evening, I find comfort in simple routines, quiet dinners with my father and brother, laughter over small things, and sometimes, silence that feels warm instead of empty. That morning, however, began differently. It was still dark when my phone rang, pulling me out of restless dreams. For a moment, I lay frozen, my heart thudding against my ribs. The world outside my window was hushed, the kind of quiet that belongs only to the earliest hours of the morning. I reached for the phone on my nightstand and blinked at the screen. Anna. My best friend. She never called so early. My stomach twisted as I answered. Hello. My voice was groggy. Emma, her voice came, soft but strained, carrying something that sounded dangerously close. To fear. Can you meet me? Please. Come to the city park near the old bridge. I'll wait for you. I sat up instantly. Anna, what's wrong? What happened? Please come, she whispered. I don't feel safe. And then the line went dead. I stared at the screen, confusion and dread colliding inside me. It was 6 in the morning. What was Anna doing in the park at this hour? Why did her voice tremble like that? I dressed quickly, jeans, a grey hoodie, my old white sneakers. I didn't bother with breakfast. My father was still asleep, his snores faint down the hall, and my brother was curled up in his blanket. I didn't wake them. Somehow, it felt like this was mine to handle. The air outside was sharp with cold, stinging my cheeks as I stepped into the silent street. Brentwood looked strange at that hour. The usual rush was gone. No chatter, no engines, no vendors. Only stillness, broken by the distant bark of a dog. I hurried to the main road and waved at the first yellow taxi I saw. The driver barely spoke, and I was grateful. My thoughts were already loud enough. 10 minutes later, the car stopped near the park. The sky was washed in pale grey, the grass damp with morning dew. I stepped out, my sneakers crunching softly on the gravel path, and looked toward the old bridge that stretched over the narrow river. Few people came here this early, it was too quiet, too forgotten. And then I saw her. Anna stood near a tree, her frame tense, her face pale. Her eyes darted over her shoulder as if shadows themselves could leap out and catch her. Anna. I called, hurrying toward her. She turned, her lips curving into a weak, almost broken smile. Thank you for coming, she whispered. I didn't know who else to call. I took her hand, cold and trembling in mine. What happened? She glanced around again, her shoulders stiff. Her voice lowered to a whisper. I think someone is following me. A chill ran down my back. Her words clung to me like the morning fog. I think someone is following me. I stared at her, trying to steady my breath. Anna wasn't the type to imagine things. She was usually the brave one, the girl who jumped into rivers first when we were kids, who raised her hand in class without hesitation, who spoke her mind even when others stayed quiet. Seeing her like this, her shoulders hunched, her voice small, made me feel a fear I hadn't known before. Since when? I asked softly. She swallowed, her eyes flicking toward the riverbank. Yesterday. I saw him outside the supermarket. He just stood there watching me. I thought it was nothing. But this morning, near my house, it was the same man. And when I came here, I swear he followed me. I saw him, Emma. Right over there. She pointed toward a cluster of trees across the river. My eyes followed her trembling finger. The trees were dark and still, their branches drooping like tired arms. I squinted, but there was no one, just leaves trembling in the light breeze, the faint glimmer of water below. Where is he now? I asked, my voice hushed. Anna shook her head. He was standing there a few minutes ago, but I don't see him now. A shiver ran down my spine. I squeezed her hand tighter, more for myself than for her. Okay, I said carefully. Let's not panic. Let's go sit down, somewhere visible. We can watch for a while and talk. Maybe, I hesitated, maybe he was just a passerby. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Maybe, she echoed, though I could tell she didn't believe it. We walked to a bench near the path, our footsteps crunching on the gravel. She sat down first, her eyes still scanning the trees like a soldier on watch. I sat beside her, forcing myself to look calm even though my heart was hammering in my chest. For a few minutes, silence stretched between us, broken only by the rustle of branches and the chirping of distant birds. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. An old woman was shuffling along the path. Her steps were uncertain, hesitant, like she didn't quite know where to place her feet. She clutched a small brown purse against her chest and kept turning her head, left, right, back again, as though the world had become a puzzle she could no longer solve. Her grey hair was wispy around her face, and her coat hung loosely on her thin shoulders. She stopped near another bench, sat heavily, and lowered her head into her hands. My heart ached. Whatever fear I had been feeling about Anna's stranger dimmed for a moment. This woman looked lost in more ways than one. Anna, I whispered, nudging her gently. Look. Anna followed my gaze, her expression softening as she saw the old woman. For the first time since I'd arrived, her eyes weren't fixed on the trees. I stood and walked toward the woman slowly, careful not to startle her. Hello, I said softly. Are you all right? The woman lifted her head. Her eyes were watery, tired, but searching. I don't know where my son is, she murmured. He was with me, but now I don't see him. I think I went the wrong way. My throat tightened. She looked so frail, so vulnerable. Anna came over and sat beside her. Do you remember your son's name? She asked gently. The woman nodded. Yes. His name is Daniel. He wears a red cap. I glanced around the park. Joggers had begun to appear, and a man was walking a dog nearby. But no one wore a red cap. Do you remember where you saw him last? I asked. The woman furrowed her brow. At the bus stop. He told me to sit there and wait, but I thought I saw him near the trees. She shook her head, her voice breaking. I was wrong. I walked away. Her hands trembled on her purse. My heart squeezed at the sight. Come, I said, helping her to her feet. Let's walk back to the bus stop. Maybe he's still there. The woman's eyes brightened slightly, as if clinging to the hope in my words. She smiled weakly. Thank you, girls. Anna slipped her hand into the woman's, steadying her. And for a brief moment, I saw the fear leave Anna's eyes, replaced by purpose. Helping someone else seemed to anchor her, even as her own troubles still hovered like shadows. We walked slowly together, the woman leaning gently on Anna. As we turned a corner, I heard hurried footsteps pounding the pavement. Mom, a voice shouted. A young man came running toward us, breathless, his red cap gleaming in the morning light. Relief spread across the woman's face. Daniel, she cried, tears springing to her eyes. They fell into each other's arms, holding on tight, as though the world might separate them again. You scared me, Daniel said, his voice thick. I was looking everywhere for you. I'm sorry, she whispered. I got confused. The young man looked up at us, gratitude shining in his eyes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Anna smiled, a real smile this time. It's okay, she said. We're glad we could help. He nodded, squeezing his mother's shoulder. Then they walked away together, leaving behind a sense of warmth that clung to the chilly morning air. I looked at Anna. She was still pale, still tired, but something had shifted. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Helping her made me feel better, she admitted quietly. For a moment, I forgot about the man. I squeezed her hand again. Maybe that's what we need, I said softly. To remember there's still kindness in the world, even when fear tries to take it away. The months passed, and what began as laughter-filled evenings and whispered secrets beneath the stars began to shift, almost too subtly for me to notice at first. Liam's smile, the one that used to light up entire rooms, started appearing less often. He would sit with us at our favorite bench by the river, but instead of filling the silence with stories, he seemed swallowed by it. His fingers would tug at loose threads on his sleeve, his eyes fixed on the flowing water as though it carried away parts of him he couldn't reach anymore. I tried to joke with him. I tried to drag him into conversations about silly things, the music we loved, the books we once swapped back and forth, even the old dreams we had about traveling to places we had only seen in magazines. Sometimes he would respond with a faint chuckle, but other times he just nodded, as if my words barely touched him. One evening, I asked him, Liam, are you okay? He looked at me then, and for a fleeting second, I thought he would tell me everything. His lips parted, his eyes softened, but then he shook his head. Yeah, just tired. That's all. But I knew it wasn't just that. I began to notice the absences. Days when he wouldn't come to class, or when he skipped our usual hangouts. Sometimes, when I called, his phone would ring endlessly until the sound itself felt like rejection. Other times, his messages came hours, sometimes days, later, short replies that didn't sound like him at all. Lena tried to reassure me. He's probably just busy. You know how life gets. But I couldn't ignore the sinking weight in my chest. It wasn't just busyness. Something deeper was pressing down on him, pulling him away from us, from himself. The night it all became clear was colder than usual, though it was only early spring. We were walking home, the three of us. Lena had gone ahead to meet her brother, leaving Liam and me alone under the soft hum of the streetlights. He stopped walking, shoved his hands into his pockets, and said quietly, Emma, have you ever felt like you're disappearing, even when you're standing right there? The question pierced through me. I turned to face him. What do you mean? His jaw clenched, his eyes avoiding mine. Like you're here, but nobody really sees you. Not even yourself. Like you could vanish tomorrow, and it wouldn't change much. I reached out, touched his sleeve, desperate to anchor him. Liam, that's not true. You matter. You matter so much. To me. To us. To this world. But he only gave me a half smile, the kind that breaks your heart, because it's filled with everything unsaid. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, thinking about his words. Disappearing. Vanishing. The thought of losing him, of the world losing his laughter, his warmth, his very being, was unbearable. I promised myself I wouldn't let him slip away. Not without a fight. Days bled into weeks, and weeks into months. The ache of his absence dulled in some places, but in others it throbbed stronger than ever. At school, I watched other kids talk about their fathers with the ease of people who never doubted presence. A classmate once complained, "My dad forgot to pick me up again." She rolled her eyes, but my heart sank. How could she take such a simple act of arrival for granted? At night, I began writing letters to him. They were never sent, just folded pieces of paper tucked into a showbox beneath my bed. Dear Dad, today I passed my math test. I wanted to see your smile. Dear Dad, Mom looks tired. I wish you were here to hold her. Dear Dad, do you still think of me? The box filled slowly, a silent record of my longing. Each letter felt like a conversation we never had, words spilling into the dark where only the moon could hear them. Sometimes, when I finished a letter, I pressed it against my chest, imagining that maybe, somehow, the love inside would reach him wherever he was. One evening, Mom found me with pen in hand, tears smudging the ink. She sat beside me, brushed a strand of hair from my face, and said softly, "He would be proud of you, Emma. More than you know." But her voice carried a tremor, and I realized she was holding back her own tears. It wasn't just my loss. It was hers too. The weeks that followed felt like both a blur and an eternity. Time stretched in strange ways when you were grieving, one moment endless, the next moment vanishing in a blink. I found myself replaying every memory of Aidan. The way he used to knock twice on my window when he came to pick me up, the way he whistled off-key when he was nervous, the way his laughter filled spaces like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. But memories, as beautiful as they were, had edges that cut. I would be folding laundry and suddenly remember how Aidan once helped me with a stubborn fitted sheet, both of us laughing so hard we fell over onto the couch. I would walk past the little park and hear echoes of our voices, swinging side by side as though no one else existed. Every memory was a gift and a wound. One afternoon, Mrs. Evans invited me over. She greeted me at the door with tired eyes, but a warm hug. Her house felt quieter now, as though even the walls missed Aidan's footsteps. "I want to show you something," she said softly, leading me into Aidan's room. It was neat, almost too neat, as though someone had tried to preserve it exactly as it was. On the desk sat his old guitar, its strings slightly out of tune, and next to it was a small wooden box. She placed it in my hands. "He wanted you to have this," she whispered. I opened the box slowly. Inside were small treasures only Aidan would keep, movie tickets from films we watched together, a seashell we once found on a school trip, and a folded piece of paper. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a letter. "Emma, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't keep my promise to stay forever. But I want you to know, you gave me more life than the years ever could. You made me laugh, you listened to my silences, you made me believe in kindness. Don't waste your heart on guilt. Live the dreams we once whispered about. I'll be with you in every sunrise, in every song, in every place where laughter still exists. You were my best friend. You always will be. Aidan." Tears blurred my vision as I clutched the letter to my chest. It felt like he had reached across the distance between life and death, just to hold my hand one more time. That night, I walked to the lake alone. The water shimmered under the silver glow of the moon, and the air was cool against my face. I sat at our spot and whispered into the night. Thank you, Aidan, for everything. It wasn't enough, but it was all I had. I closed my eyes, and for the first time since he left, I didn't feel crushed by silence. I felt surrounded by his presence, gentle, steady, and eternal. Grief doesn't end. It softens. It reshapes you. Months later, I found myself doing little things differently. I started journaling, writing letters to Aidan about my days. Sometimes I left them at the lake, letting the wind take them. I started volunteering at the community center, helping kids with their studies, remembering how Aidan once said he wanted to make a difference. I carried him forward in these ways, not as a weight, but as a light. One day, as I walked past the library, I noticed a boy struggling with his guitar case. He looked about 14, frustrated as the strap slipped from his shoulder. Without thinking, I rushed forward and helped him adjust it. He smiled shyly, thanking me, and in that moment, I thought of Aidan, how he once taught himself guitar, fumbling at first, but never giving up. It hit me then, Aidan's story wasn't over. It lived on in me, in everyone he touched, and in the quiet ripples of kindness we could still create. I still miss him every day. I always will. But instead of drowning in that ache, I let it remind me of how deeply I loved, and how lucky I was to have known him. Aidan once told me, Emma, friendship is the kind of love that doesn't fade. Even if the world changes, even if we're far apart, it's the one thing that stays. Now, I finally understood. He wasn't gone. Not really. He was in the laughter I dared to share again, in the courage I found to move forward, and in the way I carried his memory like a flame, small, steady, unextinguished. And maybe that was the truest form of love.